My mom screamed at me in front of the entire extended family that I owed my sister my life savings to help her survive her tragic divorce. I set my fork down, looked her dead in the eye, and said, maybe she shouldn't have cheated on Ethan. Then, the room went so silent you could hear the ice melting in the water glasses. My mom's face drained of all color, and I committed what my family is calling the worst act of betrayal in our bloodline's history. My name is Leo. B.S. I'm 32 years old, and up until about a month ago, I was living a quiet, peaceful life as a data analyst in Charlotte, North Carolina. I had a nice apartment, a solid group of friends, and a decent, if emotionally distant, relationship with my family. Now, I am in total familial exile. My mother, Helen, ignores my calls. My father, Arthur, sends me single-word texts like disgraceful with zero punctuation. And my older sister, Chloe, the 34-year-old architect of this entire nightmare, has blocked me on every conceivable platform, including Spotify, which I didn't even know had a block feature. But if I just dropped the punchline of how I blew up my family at a Sunday brisket dinner, you'd probably think I was a bitter, vindictive villain. To understand why I lit the match and burned the whole facade to the ground, you have to understand the dynamic of my family. I grew up in a standard middle-class, suburban bubble. My dad worked in corporate insurance, and my mom was a part-time real estate agent. From the outside, we were the picture-perfect nuclear family. But inside our four walls, there was a clear, unspoken hierarchy. Chloe was the sun, and the rest of us were just planets orbiting her, desperate for her warmth. It wasn't a cruel, Cinderella-style abuse situation. It was a million tiny, subtle cuts over 3 decades. Chloe was the golden child. When she got a B in high school chemistry, my parents hired a private tutor for $60 an hour because her potential was limitless. When I struggled in calculus, I was told to stay after school and ask the teacher for free help because I needed to learn self-reliance. When Chloe turned 16, my parents co-signed a loan for a brand new Toyota Corolla because she needed something safe and reliable. When I got my license, I was handed the keys to my uncle's 1999 Ford Taurus that smelled vaguely of wet dog and had a driver's side window taped shut. When it came time for college, my parents cheerfully drained a massive chunk of their savings to send Chloe to a private university out of state. When it was my turn 2 years later, the well was miraculously dry. My dad sat me down at the kitchen table, patted my shoulder, and said, "You're a smart kid, Leo, you'll figure it out. Apply for scholarships." I did figure it out. I worked night shifts at a hotel front desk, took out loans, and clawed my way to a degree in data analytics. I wasn't deeply bitter about it, or maybe I was, but I had learned to compartmentalize it. I accepted my role as the bootstrap kid, the one who didn't need help, the one who was fine, the one who was basically a background character in the ongoing reality show of Chloe's life. When Chloe was 27, she married a guy named Ethan. Ethan was, for lack of a better word, a catch. He was a regional manager for a software company, drove a pristine Audi, played golf with my dad, and charmed my mom so thoroughly she basically treated him like the son she always wished she had. I actually liked Ethan a lot. He was grounded, never made me feel like the lesser sibling, and always brought top-tier bourbon to our family cookouts. My parents paid for a massive, Pinterest-perfect wedding. I stood up there as a groomsman, smiled for the photos, and genuinely thought my sister had secured her happily ever after. For 6 years, everything was flawless. They bought a gorgeous 4-bedroom house in a gated community. They adopted a golden doodle. They hosted immaculate Labor Day barbecues. My mom would constantly bring up Chloe and Ethan's marriage as the gold standard, usually while shooting sideways glances at me, the chronically single guy eating takeout and watching hockey on a Saturday night. I was fine with my life. I had a great career, money in the bank, and peace. I didn't need the white picket fence. Then, about 10 months ago, the cracks started forming. Chloe started showing up to Sunday dinners alone. Whenever my mom asked where Ethan was, Chloe would sigh dramatically and say he was working late again or traveling for a conference. But I noticed the subtle changes. Chloe looked haggard. She was constantly snapping at my parents over minor things, aggressively scrolling through her phone under the table, and she completely stopped posting those nauseatingly perfect couple selfies online. I tried to be a good brother. One evening, while we were cleaning up the kitchen, I handed her a towel and asked gently, "Hey, is everything okay with you and Ethan? You seem really stressed lately." She glared at me like I had just insulted her outfit. "Everything is completely fine, Leo, stop analyzing me. Just mind your own business." So I did. I backed off entirely. 2 months later, the bomb dropped. Chloe showed up at my parents' house on a rainy Saturday morning, dragging a massive designer suitcase, mascara running down her cheeks, sobbing hysterically. She announced that she and Ethan were getting a divorce. My mother immediately went into DEFCON 1. She started crying, brewing herbal tea, wrapping Chloe in blankets, and calling my Aunt Martha for emotional reinforcements. My dad looked like someone had just told him his retirement fund evaporated. The entire family mobilized around Chloe like she was a refugee fleeing a war zone. The official narrative that Chloe fed the family was a masterpiece of victimhood. According to her, Ethan had radically changed. He had become cold, emotionally abusive, distant, and financially controlling. She claimed he had completely checked out of the marriage, refused to go to couples counseling, and had essentially abandoned her emotionally. She said she had fought tooth and nail to save the relationship, but Ethan was a narcissist who couldn't love anyone but himself. She had no choice but to leave for her own sanity. My mom swallowed this story whole. Overnight, Ethan went from being the perfect son-in-law to a literal monster. My mom started referring to him exclusively as that sociopath. I had no reason to doubt my sister's tears. Divorce is ugly, and people change behind closed doors. Plus, Ethan completely vanished. He didn't reach out to my parents. He didn't text me, he just disappeared into the ether. To my family, his silence was an admission of guilt. It was exactly what a cold, unfeeling narcissist would do. For the next 3 months, my parents' house became the Chloe Recovery Center. My mom actually converted her sewing room into what she called a healing sanctuary for Chloe, complete with a $400 essential oil diffuser, a weighted blanket, and stacks of self-help books. My dad quietly took over paying for Chloe's car lease and her premium health insurance because she claimed the divorce was draining her bank accounts. Nobody asked how my life was going, which was par for the course. But then, my mom started planting seeds. She would call me on my commute home and make these passive-aggressive comments. Family needs to stick together right now, Leo. Your sister is going through a trauma. It would be nice if you took her out to dinner, maybe paid for a spa day for her. Show her that the men in her life aren't all like that monster. I tried. I really did. I took Chloe out for expensive sushi. I spent an entire Saturday helping her move her remaining boxes out of the house she shared with Ethan. I listened to her vent. But nothing was ever enough. Then, the financial requests started. It began small. My mom called and said Chloe had found a beautiful luxury apartment downtown but was short on the security deposit. She just needs $4,000. Leo, you make good money. It would mean the world to her. $4,000 is not pocket change. I had that money saved for a trip to Japan I had been planning for 2 years. But the guilt trip was relentless. My mom cried on the phone, saying I was being selfish while my sister was on the brink of a breakdown. Against my better judgment, I transferred the $4,000 to Chloe. I didn't even get a thank you text, just a thumbs up emoji. I thought that would be the end of it. I was dead wrong. The truth has a funny way of finding you when you aren't looking for it. About 2 weeks after I sent the money, I was sitting in a crowded sports bar downtown with my buddy Gabe, watching a football game. I was nursing a beer when a guy walked up to our booth. I vaguely recognized him from Chloe and Ethan's wedding. Leo, right? Chloe's brother? He asked. I nodded. He introduced himself as Nolan, one of Ethan's closest friends, and former co-workers. I immediately tensed up, expecting him to give me some awkward condolences about the divorce. Instead, Nolan slid into the booth across from me, looked me dead in the eye, and blew my entire reality to pieces. Look, man, I don't know what your sister is telling your family, but I feel like you need to know the truth. Ethan is losing his mind trying to take the high road, and it's destroying him, Nolan said. I frowned. What do you mean? Ethan checked out. He refused counseling. Nolan let out a harsh, bitter laugh. Checked out? Leo, Ethan didn't check out. He found out Chloe had been sleeping with a guy named Julian for over 7 months. A full-blown, double-life affair. And that's not even the worst part. My stomach dropped to the floor. What? Nolan leaned in. Ethan caught her because she left her iPad synced to her iMessages. He saw everything. The hotel bookings, the texts, everything. When he confronted her, she didn't even apologize. She blamed him. She told him he worked too much and pushed her into Julian's arms. Ethan begged her to go to counseling. He wanted to save the marriage. She laughed in his face and said she wasn't giving up Julian. I sat there, completely paralyzed, the noise of the sports bar fading into white noise. And here is the kicker, Nolan continued, his voice dropping to a furious whisper. Ethan didn't just find out about the cheating. He found out that Chloe had secretly drained $25,000 from their joint savings account to give to Julian. The guy is a total deadbeat who claimed he was starting a crypto business. She bankrupted her own marriage for her affair partner. Ethan moved out because he was legally advised to separate himself from her financial mess before she ruined his credit too. I felt physically nauseous. I asked Nolan why Ethan hadn't told anyone this. Because Ethan still cared about her family, believe it or not, Nolan said, shaking his head. He thought Chloe would eventually confess to your parents. He didn't want to drag her through the mud publicly. He took the silent road because he thought it was the honorable thing to do. But now I hear she's painting him as an abuser? It's sick. Nolan finished his drink, patted my shoulder, and walked away, leaving me sitting there with my reality completely shattered. Gabe, who had heard the whole thing, just stared at me. Bro, he said quietly. What are you gonna do? Gabe. Bro. I didn't know. For the next 2 weeks, I carried that secret around like a radioactive isotope in my chest. Every time my mom called to update me on Chloe's healing journey, I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive to my parents' house and smash the essential oil diffuser against the wall. But I stayed quiet. In my family, the person who exposes the ugly truth is never viewed as the hero. They are viewed as the traitor who ruined the peace. I told myself to just keep my head down and stay out of it. Then came the demand that pushed me over the edge. It was a Wednesday night. My mom called me, her voice dripping with that artificial sweetness she uses right before she asks for a massive favor. She gave me a long, dramatic monologue about how Chloe's legal fees were piling up, how Ethan's lawyers were bullying her, and how Chloe was drowning in debt. Leo, your father and I have done all we can. We dipped into our retirement. My mom sighed heavily. We need you to step up. Chloe needs $12,000 to cover her retainer and get her life back on track. We think you should give it to her. Give. Not lend. Give. I gripped the phone so hard my knuckles turned white. $12,000? Mom, are you out of your mind? I don't have 12 grand to just hand over to her. And even if I did, I wouldn't. My mom's tone instantly flipped from sweet to venomous. Oh, please, Leo. You're a single guy with a fancy tech job. You don't have kids. You don't have a mortgage. You just hoard your money. You don't have a mortgage. Your sister is in the fight of her life against a monster, and you are being greedy and selfish. I just don't understand why you can't show up for her the way she'd show up for you. That sentence echoed in my brain. The way she'd show up for me. When I was hospitalized with appendicitis 3 years ago, Chloe didn't even visit me because she had tickets to a wine tasting festival. I told my mom I wasn't giving her a dime and hung up. That triggered the family-wide pressure campaign. Over the next 5 days, my phone blew up. My dad called and gave me a halting, rehearsed speech about how family sacrifices for family. My Aunt Martha left me a 5-minute voicemail calling me a callous, ungrateful brother. Even my cousin Maya, who lives in Ohio and barely speaks to me, texted, "Heard you're leaving Chloe out to dry. Not cool, Leo. Do better." It was a coordinated, emotional shakedown. And it was all based on a massive, disgusting lie. Chloe wasn't paying legal fees. She was probably trying to replenish the money she stole, or worse, she was trying to get $12,000 to give to her deadbeat boyfriend, Julian. The breaking point arrived at the Sunday brisket dinner. My mom only makes her famous slow-cooked brisket when she wants to enforce family unity. It's an emotional weapon served with roasted potatoes. The guest list included my parents, Chloe, Aunt Martha, Uncle Bob, and me. I walked into that house fully intending to eat my food, keep my mouth shut, and leave. For the first hour, it was unbearable. Chloe sat there looking like a tragic Victorian widow, sighing deeply while pushing her potatoes around her plate. Aunt Martha kept patting her hand, murmuring about how strong she was. My mom was holding court, talking about how Ethan was probably going to end up in jail someday because men like that always expose themselves. I was grinding my teeth so hard my jaw ached, but I kept my head down. Then, my mom served dessert, poured coffee, and turned her sights on me. She put on her soft, disappointed face. "Leo, I really hope you've spent the last few days reflecting on our conversation. We are at a crisis point. Chloe needs that $12,000 by Tuesday. I really feel it's time for you to stop being stubborn and step up for your blood." The entire table went dead silent. All eyes turned to me. Aunt Martha nodded approvingly. My dad stared at his coffee mug. Chloe just looked down, letting my mom do her dirty work. I put my napkin on the table. "Mom, I already gave her $4,000. I am not giving her 12 grand. I'm done." My mom's eyes flashed with fury. "I don't understand you, Leo, I really don't. You sit there, hoarding your little savings account, while your sister's life has been destroyed by a selfish, abusive man. She is the victim here. How can you be so heartless?" The pressure inside my chest, 32 years of being second best, of being the ATM, of swallowing my own needs, finally exploded. I looked right at my mother, my voice dangerously calm. "Mom. Maybe she shouldn't have cheated on Ethan, then." The silence that followed was absolute. It was a heavy, suffocating vacuum. You could hear the hum of the refrigerator. My mom's face went chalk white. Uncle Bob dropped his spoon. It clattered loudly against his saucer. Chloe's head snapped up, her eyes wide with sheer, unadulterated panic. What did you just say?" she stammered, her voice trembling. I didn't yell. I didn't break eye contact. "I know about Julian, Chloe. I know you were sleeping with him for 7 months. I know Ethan found your messages on your iPad. I know he begged you to go to counseling and you refused. And I know you drained $25,000 out of your joint account to fund Julian's fake crypto garbage." Aunt Martha gasped loudly, putting a hand over her pearls. My dad looked up, his jaw literally hanging open. Chloe immediately burst into manic tears. "He's lying. Mom, he's lying. Ethan put him up to this. Ethan is trying to poison my own brother against me. My mom stood up so fast her chair scraped violently against the hardwood. She pointed a trembling finger at my face and screamed. I have never heard my mother scream like this. How dare you? How dare you come into my house and spread disgusting, vile lies about your sister to humiliate her? You are jealous of her. You have always been jealous of her. You owe her a massive apology right now, or you can get the hell out of my house. I looked at my mother. She didn't even care if it was true. She just cared that I had shattered the illusion. They aren't lies, Mom, I said, standing up, and I'm not writing a $12,000 check to fund her deadbeat boyfriend. Have a nice life. I grabbed my coat and walked out the front door. I sat in my car in the driveway for 10 minutes, my hands shaking uncontrollably, adrenaline surging through my veins. But beneath the panic, I felt something else. I felt incredibly, undeniably free. Update 1. The fallout was apocalyptic. By the time I woke up the next morning, I was a ghost. Chloe blocked me on everything. My mom sent me a massive paragraph telling me I was dead to her, until I got on my knees and begged Chloe for forgiveness. My dad sent his classic one-word text, disgraceful. Aunt Martha took to Facebook, making vague, passive-aggressive posts about toxic family members who kick you when you're down. I was completely iced out. For the first few days, it hurt. It felt like I had pulled the pin on a grenade and swallowed it. But then, I reached out to the one person who actually understood what I was going through, Ethan. I got his new number from Nolan and called him. We ended up meeting for coffee at a diner on the outskirts of town. Seeing Ethan was jarring. He looked exhausted, but there was a quiet dignity to him. I apologized for how my family was treating him. Ethan gave me a sad smile. You don't owe me an apology, Leo. You're the only one in that madhouse who actually lives in reality. Over 2 hours, Ethan filled in the blanks. It was worse than I thought. Julian wasn't just a guy Chloe met at a bar. He was a known grifter who preyed on vulnerable, wealthy women. The $25,000 Chloe stole from their account was gone. Ethan had filed for divorce not out of malice, but out of sheer financial self-preservation. He showed me the court documents. He showed me the text logs he had saved. It was irrefutable proof. She called me the day I moved out, Ethan said softly, staring into his black coffee. She begged me not to tell your parents about Julian. She said it would kill your mom. I agreed to stay quiet because I just wanted a clean break. I didn't realize she was going to use my silence to turn me into a monster and extort you for cash. I left that diner with a fire in my gut. I wasn't just going to let my family paint me as a jealous liar. I called my cousin Maya in Ohio. Maya has always been a straight shooter, far enough removed from my mom's gravitational pull to see things objectively. I told her everything. I told her to look up Julian's name. I told her to ask Ethan for the court documents if she didn't believe me. Maya didn't dismiss me. She said, "Give me 3 days." While Maya did her digging, Chloe got sloppy. Arrogance is a hell of a drug. Because she thought she had successfully exiled me and secured her victim status, she stopped hunting. 2 weeks after the dinner blow-up, my mom was at an upscale outdoor shopping plaza having lunch with her country club friends. And who comes strolling out of a boutique, holding hands and laughing? Chloe and Julian. My mom's friend, who had met Ethan many times, pointed and said, "Helen, isn't that Chloe? Who is that man she's hanging all over?" My mom marched over to confront her. According to what Maya later told me, Chloe froze like a deer in headlights. She tried to stammer that Julian was just a new friend helping her through the trauma. But Julian, being the arrogant idiot he is, introduced himself as Chloe's boyfriend. The fortress of lies began to crumble in real time. Maya called me that night, practically vibrating with energy. "Leo, you blew the lid off the whole thing. I talked to Ethan. I saw the bank statements. I called my mom Aunt Martha, and told her she owes you a massive apology. Aunt Martha called your mom. The whole family tree is in total meltdown." My mom had confronted Chloe in the driveway of their house. Cornered, and without me there to act as a scapegoat, Chloe finally broke down and confessed to the affair. But she still tried to spin it, claiming Ethan drove her to it. But my mom, for all her faults, isn't stupid when it comes to money. She demanded to know where the $25,000 went. That was when the final shoe dropped. The $12,000 Chloe was trying to extort from me wasn't for lawyers. Julian was being threatened with a lawsuit from a previous investor, and Chloe was desperately trying to bail him out so he wouldn't leave her. My parents had essentially been housing and funding a woman who was bankrupting her family to pay off a con artist. Update 2. 3 days ago, I got a text from my dad. It was a full sentence this time. "We need to talk. Please come to the house on Saturday. Mom is a wreck." I almost didn't go. I had spent the last month enjoying my peaceful, drama-free life, but I knew I needed closure, not for them, but for me. I wanted to look them in the eye now that the truth was entirely in the light. I drove to the house on Saturday afternoon. When I walked in, the atmosphere was thick with misery. My mom was sitting on the couch, looking like she had aged 10 years. My dad was standing by the fireplace, rubbing his temples. Chloe was sitting in a corner armchair, looking completely defeated. Her designer clothes replaced by oversized sweatpants. I didn't sit down. I stood in the center of the living room, waiting. My mom spoke first, her voice a fragile whisper. Leo, we know everything. About Julian, about the money. Maya showed us the documents Ethan sent her. She started crying softly. I am so sorry for what I said to you at that dinner. I was just trying to protect my daughter. I didn't want to believe it. I looked at my mom, feeling absolutely nothing. You didn't just protect her, Mom, you attacked me. You called me a hoarder, you called me jealous, you were perfectly willing to let me drain my life savings to fund her lies, and when I told you the truth, you threw me out like garbage. My dad stepped forward, his eyes red. We were blind, Leo. We made a terrible mistake. Chloe has confessed to everything. She gave Julian the $4,000 you sent her. And she was going to give him the 12 grand. I turned my gaze to Chloe. She couldn't even look at me. She just stared at her socks, tears dripping onto her lap. Why, Chloe? I asked, my voice echoing in the quiet room. I helped you move. I bought you dinners. I gave you 4 grand of my hard-earned money. And you sat there at that table and watched Mom scream at me, knowing I was telling the truth. Why? Chloe choked out a sob. Because I was trapped. Julian said he was going to go to jail if I didn't get the money. I was in too deep, Leo. I was so ashamed of what I did to Ethan, and Julian was the only thing I had left. If I lost him too, it meant I blew up my life for nothing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You aren't sorry you did it, I said coldly. You're just sorry you got caught at the mall. I turned back to my parents. This isn't just about Julian. This is about the last 30 years. You created this monster. You bailed her out of every mistake she ever made. You paid for her college, you bought her cars, you built a literal healing sanctuary in your house for a woman who was actively stealing from her husband. And me? I was just the backup plan. The ATM. The kid who was supposed to shut up and hand over his money whenever the golden child needed a bailout. My dad actually flinched. My mom buried her face in her hands, sobbing loudly. That's not true, Leo. We love you equally. We just thought she needed more help. She didn't need help, Mom. She needed accountability. And you never gave it to her. I took a deep breath. The crushing weight I had carried in my chest for my entire life suddenly evaporated. I looked at the three of them, the family that had taken me for granted for 3 decades. I forgive you for being blind, I said quietly. But I don't trust you. Any of you. Chloe, you owe me $4,000. I expect a payment plan by Monday. Until that money is back in my account, do not contact me. Mom, Dad. I need space. A lot of it. I will reach out when I'm ready. If I'm ever ready. I turned around and walked out the front door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody screamed. It's been a week since that summit. True to my word, I haven't spoken to them. But yesterday, I got a Venmo notification. It was from my dad's account. A transfer for $4,000, with a note that said, Chloe is getting a job to pay me back. You shouldn't have to wait. I am so proud of the man you became without my help. I am sorry. I transferred the money to my savings account. I'm booking that trip to Japan next week. Gabe and I are going out for beers tonight to celebrate my newfound freedom. Ethan texted me yesterday saying his divorce was finalized, and he's moving to Colorado for a fresh start. He seems happy. I finally feel like I'm the main character in my own life. I'm no longer the leftover kid, and I'm definitely not an ATM. Sometimes, the only way to fix a toxic family dynamic is to light a match, drop it, and walk away from the explosion. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. It really helps the channel out and allows us to bring you even more awesome stories. Thank you so much for watching.